Good afternoon, students. So we are halfway through our course. Can you believe how fast time goes? And this is the week you're going to have your midterm exam. So you have to study the study guide and study all of the questions because all the questions that you're ever going to have for your midterm and your final and all of your quizzes are on that study guide. And so as you read each chapter and you review for your midterm exam, you should then study the study guide as you read each chapter. Now for today's lecture, I'm going to go over examples of different kinds of essays, which is in week 3, I went over rhetorical modes, different kinds of essays, and I went over the definitions of all the different kinds of essays. So in today's lecture, I'm going to give examples of those different kinds of essays. And so without further ado, I will share my screen. So the first, I'm not going to read the whole thing. So that way, it's not going to take forever to go through this lesson. The first kind of essay I'm going to go over is the narrative essay. Remember, the narrative essay is when we tell a story, storytelling. And we use chronological order in the order in which it occurred. And the narrative stories can be either fiction, that is, we make it up, or it can be factual, that is, based on true life. So here's an example of the narrative rhetorical mode. The first class I went to college in was philosophy, and it changed my life forever. Our first assignment was to write a short response paper to the Albert Camus essay, The Myth of Sisyphus. I was extremely nervous about the assignment as well as college. However, through all the confusion in philosophy class, many of my questions about life were answered. I entered college intending to earn a degree in engineering. I always liked the way mathematics had right and wrong answers. I understood the logic and was very good at it. So when I received my first philosophy assignment that asked me to write an interpretation of this essay, I was instantly confused. What is the right way to do this assignment, I wondered. I was nervous about writing an incorrect interpretation and did not want to get my first assignment wrong. Even more troubling was that the professor refused to give us any guidelines on what he was looking for. He gave us total freedom. He simply said, "I want to see what you come up with." Full of anxiety, I set out to read Camus' essay several times to make sure I really knew what it was about. I did my best to take careful notes. Yet even after I took all these notes and knew the essay inside out, I still did not know the right answer. What was my interpretation? I could think of a million different ways to interpret this essay, but which one was my professor looking for? Next, when I sat down to write, the words just did not come to me. My notes and ideas were all present, but the words were lost. I decided to try every pre-writing strategy I could find. I brainstormed, made idea maps. Eventually, after a lot of stress, my ideas became more organized and the ideas fell on the page. I had my interpretation of the myth of Sisyphus, and I had many reasons for interpreting the essay. Then a week or two later came Judgment Day. The professor gave our papers back to us with grades and comments. I remember feeling simultaneously afraid and eager. The professor gave me an A, and his notes suggested that I wrote an effective essay after all. He wrote that my reading of the essay was very original and that my thoughts were very organized. My relief and newfound confidence upon reading his comments could not be overstated. What I learned through this process extended well beyond how to write a college paper. I learned to be open to new challenges. I never expected to enjoy a philosophy class and always expected to be a math and science person. This class and assignment, however, gave me the self-confidence, critical thinking skills, and courage to try a new career path. I left engineering and went on to study law and eventually became a lawyer. And so this particular essay talks about how one assignment changed her life. So that is a story with a moral. So that is narrative essay. Illustrative essay. An illustrative essay makes a claim and then gives examples in the body paragraphs to support that claim. And so here you have letter to a city. The intersection of Central Avenue and Lake Street is dangerous and demands immediate consideration for the installation of a controlling mechanism. I have lived in Lakeview my entire life, and during that time I have witnessed too many accidents and close calls at that intersection. I would like the Department of Transportation to answer this question. How many lives have to be lost on the corner of Central and Lake before a street light or stop sign is placed there? Over the past 20 years, the population of Lakeview has increased dramatically. This population growth has put tremendous pressure on the city's roadways, especially Central and its intersecting streets. Recent data show that the intersection of Central Avenue and Lake Street has been especially dangerous. According to the city's own statistics, 3 fatalities occurred at that intersection in the past year alone. Nearly all the accidents mentioned caused by vehicles trying to cross Central Avenue while driving on Lake Street. I think the city of Lakeview should consider placing a traffic light there to control the traffic going both ways. While I do not have the access to any resources or data that can show precisely how much a traffic light can improve the intersection, I think you will agree that a controlled, busy intersection is much safer than an uncontrolled one. And so this is a problem solution essay. You bring up the problem, okay, and so those of you in my LAPU class should recognize that this is a problem solution essay for your essay 1, in which you state the problem, which was a busy intersection with too many people, and then you state the solution, which is to put a traffic light there so that there would be less fatalities. So this is an example of a problem solution illustration essay where you write your thesis statement is the problem, the thesis statement states the solutions to the problem, and then the body paragraphs present examples of solutions to the problem. So that is an illustration informative essay. A descriptive essay describes in spatial order, okay, what something looks like to paint a mental picture or of the dominant impression of the essay. And you use all of your sensory details, sight, and all of the sensory, sight, touch, hearing, in order to describe the story to the reader. So, America's pastime. As the sun hits my face and I breathe in the fresh air, I temporarily forget that I am at a sporting event. But when I open my eyes and look around, I am reminded of all things American, from the national anthem to the international players on the field. All the sights and sounds of a baseball game come together like a slice of American pie. First, the entrance turnstiles click and clank, and then a hallway noise bombards me. All the fans' voices coalesce in a chorus of sound and rising to a humming clamor. The occasional program get your program here, jumps out to the hum to get my attention. I navigate my way through the crowded walkways of the stadium, moving to the right of some people. In the 5th inning of the game, I decide to find a concession stand. Few tastes are as American as hot dogs and soda pop, and they cannot be missed at a ball game. The smell of hot dogs carries through the park, down every aisle, inside every concourse. Before I am able to get back to my seat, I hear the crack of a bat, followed by an uproar from the crowd. Everyone is standing, clapping, and cheering, and I missed a home run. I find my aisle and ask everyone to excuse me as I slip by. When I finally get to my seat, I realize it is the start of the 7th inning stretch. I quickly eat my hot dog and wash it down with my soda pop. The organ starts playing and everyone begins to sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." And so anyway, this whole thing, this gives a description of a American baseball game. You can see it, hear it, feel it, smell it. And so this is an example of a descriptive essay. Classification essay means that you put into groups and classify into groups. When you write a classification essay, you would say the different kinds of books I read, the different kinds of students that go to Fortis College, the different kinds of students that major in nursing. So anything that's grouping and different kinds of, that is a classification essay. Today's students have many choices when it comes to pursuing a degree. 4-year programs, 2-year programs, large or small classroom settings, and even daytime or evening classes. So obviously this is going to be different kinds of college classes. With all the different options to consider, potential students should learn about the different types of colleges so they can find a school that best fits their personality, budget, and educational goals. One type of higher education program for students to consider is the liberal arts college. These schools tend to be small in size and offer a range of undergraduate degrees in subjects like English, history, psychology, and education. Students may choose a liberal arts college if they want a more intimate classroom rather than large lecture-style classes. Another type of university program offers both undergraduate and graduate degrees. Usually, universities are larger than colleges and can accommodate tens of thousands of students in many different majors and areas of study. A large student body means that class sizes are often larger, and some classes may be taught by graduate students rather than professors. Students will feel at home at a university if they want a focused academic program and state-of-the-art research facilities. Community college is a type of higher education program popular with students on a limited budget who want to take college courses but may not know what they want to major in. Most schools offer degrees after 2 years of study, usually an associate's degree, that prepares students to enter the workforce. Many students choose to study at a community college for 2 years and then transfer to a 4-year college to complete their undergraduate degree. Online universities are another type of higher education program that are gaining popularity as technology improves. These schools offer many of the same degree programs as traditional liberal arts colleges and universities. Unlike traditional programs, which require students to attend classes and lectures, online universities offer students greater academic flexibility and are a great option for students wishing to pursue a degree while still working full-time. With so many colleges and universities to choose from, it may be difficult for a student to narrow down his or her decision, but once a student knows what he or she is looking for, the process may become much easier. So here you have different kinds of universities. So anytime you have a different kinds of something, that's known as a classification essay. A process analysis essay is a how-to essay. How to become rich, how to make ma po doufu, which is a kind of food that I like to eat. Any kind of how-to, like a recipe, that is a process analysis essay. How to grow tomatoes from a seedling. Growing tomatoes is a simple and rewarding task, and more people should be growing them. This paper walks readers through the main steps of growing and maintaining patio tomatoes from a seedling. The first step in growing tomatoes is determining if you have the appropriate space and sunlight to grow them. All tomato varieties require full sunlight, which means at least 6 hours of direct sun every day. Next, you need to find the right seedling. Growing tomatoes and other vegetables from seeds can be more complicated, so I am only discussing how to grow tomatoes from a seedling. A seedling, for those who do not know, is typically understood as a young plant that has only recently started growing from the seed. Once you have found the right seedling to plant back home, you need to find the best way of planting them. I recommend that you plant your tomatoes in containers. If you have the space and sunlight, then you can certainly plant them in the ground. But a container has certain advantages and is usually most manageable for the majority of gardeners, especially if you're an apartment owner like me. In addition to the container, you also need the appropriate soil mixture and draining mechanisms. For the best drainage, fill the bottom of your container with 2 or 3 inches of gravel. On top of the gravel, fill 3/4 of the container with soil. Choose a well-organized, well-balanced organic soil. Once you have gravel in the bottom of the container and the soil on top, you are ready to transplant the tomato. Pick up the tomato in the tomato plastic container if it comes from the nursery. Turn it upside down and holding the stem between your fingers, pat the bottom several times and the plant should fall into your hand. Next, you should gently, basically what you do is you take the plant out of its old container, you shake it, and then the roots, okay, you'll see the roots, and then you dig a little hole inside the soil and you plant it in that way, and then you pat, and then you then you fill in the hole, and that pretty much, and then if you have some kind of fence, you can then tie the tomato plant to the fence so that if it gets windy, it's not going to fall over. Okay, so once the mulch is lit, and then after you plant it, you've got the gravel, the soil, then you have the mulch. So anyway, so you get the idea of that the process analysis essay is a how-to essay. And then the next one after that, a definition essay. A definition essay is a what is love, what is a good student, what makes a good wife, for instance. And so you would put the definition, like a good wife is someone who, for some people, a good wife is someone who obeys the husband, takes care of the children, and stays home. For others, your wife is your partner, your equal partner, where you have equal, tasks, and each person has their own job. So when you want to define a definition, that is a definition essay. So here is an example of a definition essay. Many people define good students as those who receive the best grades. While it is true that good students often earn high grades, I contend that grades are just one aspect of how we define a good student. In fact, even poor students can earn high grades. So grades are not the best indicator of a student quality. Rather, a good student pursues scholarship, actively participates in class, and maintains a positive professional relationship with instructors and peers. And so each one of those definitions pursues scholarship. That becomes paragraph 2. Participates in class, paragraph 3. Maintains a positive attitude, relationship, paragraph 4. So you have to have your 3 reasons in your thesis statement, and it becomes your 3 body paragraphs. That is the 5-paragraph essay structure, and that is coherence. Yeah. Good students have a passion for learning that drives them to fully understand class material rather than just worry about what grades they receive in the class. Good students are actively engaged in scholarship, which means they enjoy reading and learning about their subject material, not just because reading and assignments are required. Class participation and behavior are another aspect of the definition of a good student. Simply attending class is not enough. Good students arrive punctually because they understand that tardiness disrupts the class and disrespects the professor. They might occasionally arrive a few minutes early to ask the professor questions about class materials or mentally prepare for the day's work. Good students consistently pay attention during class discussions, take notes in lectures, rather than engage in off-task behavior such as checking their cell phones or daydreaming. Finally, good students maintain a positive and professional relationship with their professors. They respect their professor's authority in the classroom as well as the instructor's privacy outside of the classroom. Prying into a professor's personal life is inappropriate, but attending office hours to discuss course material is an appropriate, effective way for students to demonstrate their dedication and interest in learning. Good students go to their professor's office hours during the posted office hours or make an appointment if necessary. While instructors can be very busy, they are usually very happy to offer guidance to students during office hours. After all, availability after class is part of the job. Attending office hours can also help students become memorable and stand out from the rest. Although good grades often accompany good students, grades are not the only way to indicate what it means to be a good student. The definition of a good student means demonstrating such traits as engaging with course material, participating in class, and creating a professional relationship with teachers. So you notice that the thesis statement is the last sentence of the first paragraph and the first sentence of the last paragraph. So that is a hallmark of 5-paragraph essay structure. Compare and contrast. So when you compare two things, you're comparing their similarities, and when you contrast two things, you're talking about the differences between two things. So here's an example of a compare and contrast essay, and I read this in a previous video too. Both Washington, D.C. and London are capital cities of English-speaking countries, and yet they offer vastly different experiences to their residents and visitors. Comparing and contrasting the two cities based on their history, their culture, and their residents show how different and similar the two are. Both cities are rich in world and national history. And so here you have the thesis statement in which you have the 3 reasons and the 3 things that's going to be compared. So the history, and then so paragraph 2 is going to be about the history. Paragraph 2 is going to be about the museums and culture. Paragraph 3 is going to be about diversity and cost of living, because that's what that was mentioned within the thesis statement. So both cities are rich in world and national history. Though they developed on very different timelines, London, for instance, has a history that dates back over 2,000 years. It was part of the Roman Empire and known by the name Londinium. It was not only one of the northmost eastern points of the Roman Empire, but also the epicenter of the British Empire. Washington, D.C., on the other hand, has only existed since the 18th century. Both Washington, D.C. and London offer a wide array of museums, but harbor many of the world's most prized treasures. While Washington, D.C. has the National Gallery of Art and several other Smithsonian galleries, London has a definite edge. From the Tate Modern to the British National Gallery, London's art ranks among the world's best. That's because London is older than Washington, D.C., so it has more museums. Both have great cultural diversity, but London has more of a cultural diversity than Washington, but both cities are equally expensive, like $1,800 a month. So that's really expensive. And even though Washington, D.C. and London are major cities of English-speaking countries in the Western world, they have many differences along with their similarities. They have vastly different histories, art cultures, and racial demographics, but they remain similar in their cost of living and socioeconomic disparity. So both are very expensive to live in. So that's why most people live outside. Like I have a cousin who lives outside of London. And so I live outside of, you always live outside of the city to save money. Cause and effect essay. So when you write about cause and effect, you either write about the causes of something or the effects of something. Effects of video game addiction. Video game addiction is a serious problem in many parts of the world today and deserves more attention. It is no secret that children and adults in many countries throughout the world, including Japan and China and the United States, play video games every day. Most players are able to limit their usage in ways that do not interfere with their daily lives, but many have developed an addiction to playing video games and suffer detrimental effects. An addiction can be described in several ways, but generally speaking, addictions involve unhealthy attractions to substances or activities that disrupt the person's ability to live a daily life. One common effect of video game addiction is isolation and withdrawal from social experiences. Video game players often hide in their homes or in internet for days at a time, only re-emerging for the most pressing task and necessity. The effect of this isolation can lead to a breakdown of communication skills, and often a loss in socialization. Another unfortunate product of the isolation that often accompanies video game addiction is a disruption of the user's career. While many players manage to enjoy video games and still hold their jobs without problems, others experience challenges at their workplace. Some may only experience warnings or demerits as a result of poorer performance, where others may end up losing their jobs altogether. Playing video games for extended periods of time involves sleep deprivation, and this tends to carry over into the workplace, reducing production and causing habitual tardiness. Video game addiction may result in a decline in overall health and hygiene. Players who interact with video games for such significant amounts of time can go an entire day without eating, and even longer time without taking a shower. So if you don't take a shower, you stink. The causes of video game addiction are complex and can vary greatly, but the effects have the potential to be severe. And so here you have the effects, the negative effects of video game playing, where you spend all of your time in front of a video game and then you don't have a social life. You don't even take a shower or eat. You stink and you lose your job. So those are the detrimental effects of video games. A persuasive essay is when you want to convince the reader of your point of view. By the way, this is the last one, okay? So don't worry, this is almost over. So when you want to persuade the reader of your point of view, that's when you write a persuasive essay. The United States is the only modernized nation that does not offer publicly funded health care to all the citizens. The cost of health care for the uninsured in the United States are prohibitive, and the practices of insurance companies often reveal more interest in profit margins than providing health care. One of the most common arguments against providing universal health care is that it will cost too much money. In other words, universal health care would raise taxes too much. While providing health care for all U.S. citizens would cost a lot of money, for every tax-paying citizen, citizens need to examine exactly how much money it would cost. And those who have health insurance already pay too much money. Those without coverage are charged unfathomable amounts. However, even if universal health care would cost Americans a bit more money each year, we ought to reflect on what type of country we would like to live in and what types of morals we represent if we are more willing to deny health care to others on the basis of saving a couple of $100s per year. In a system that privileges capitalism and rugged individualism, little room remains for compassion and love. It is time that Americans realize the amorality of U.S. hospitals forced to turn away the sick and poor. Another common argument against the universal healthcare system in the United States is that other comparable national healthcare systems like that of England, France, or Canada are bankrupt or ripe with problems. Universal healthcare opponents claim that sick patients in these countries often wait in long lines or long waits for basic healthcare. Opponents who commonly accuse these systems of being unable to pay for themselves, racking up huge deficits year after year. Anyway, so I'm not going to read the whole thing since I read this in a different. But basically, he makes the case that America should have universal health care, and he uses a counter argument in which he says that, but the other side says that it's going to cost too much. You're going to have long waits, and if you get sick, you're not going to be able to get your operation because you have a gazillion people waiting in front of you. And whereas if you have private healthcare, then you just pay for the operation that you need, you come and go, and that's it. So, every healthcare system has its pros and cons. And so in this persuasive essay, he uses a counter argument, he talks about the other side, and then he rebuts it, and so he's able to, strengthen his argument. And so that's it for this week. And I went over all the different, I know that I reread some of the stuff I read for your quiz, and I reread it on my Professor H writing channel. But it's okay to repeat yourself now and again, because part of learning is looking at something over and over again. And part of teaching is repeating myself over and over again. So I don't mind reading it twice. And then if you look into your, and then at the end of each reading, you can do even more reading. And the more reading you do, in other words, when you read the different kinds of essays, the more reading you do, the better you write. So you could look at these sample essays and do a reverse outline and try to figure out where is the thesis statement for that author, where did he place the thesis statement, and then try to write in the same style that he wrote so that you can emulate the style of your favorite writer. And that way, that's why the more you read, the better you write, because then you become exposed to good writing, and you know what good writing looks like, sounds like. And it also, the more you read, the more you learn vocabulary and good grammar, and some of it does sink in. And so I hope you enjoyed this lecture on the different kinds of essays and the different kinds of rhetorical modes in English. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to email me at any time. And if you enjoyed this video, you can subscribe to the Professor H writing channel. So I will see you again next week for week 7. So congratulations that all of you have made it halfway through this class.